Hello everybody, this is V Harper from supermarcy.com and welcome back. Alright, so here's the deal. I'm going to be doing a series of videos devoted to the things that I love. Now, this sort of compilation that I've been thinking up is more or less my own spin on Marcy and Bede's favourite movies of every year of their life. Now, doing something like that, for me, would kill me, okay? It would slay me into the ground because there's no way I can possibly pick one favourite film for every year I was born. So, in saying that, what I am going to do is that I'm going to talk about 32 things that I like. Now, these things are going to be incredibly varied in terms of content. There may be films, characters, books, whatever springs into my mind that I feel like talking about and wasting your valuable time with. So in saying that, this is going to be my first video, and this video is going to be devoted to my love of villains. Alright, so here's the thing. Villains to me are important. And the reason why they are important comes back to a very basic belief I have. Villainy in fiction, no matter what it is a representation of us as people. Villainy is corresponded to what would happen if you were to leave behind all of your common decency and not keep a check on your own ambitions. If you were to leave your inhibitions at the door of morality and go on your merry way doing whatever you pleased and saying whatever you wanted. So for me, in terms of villainy, I feel one way or another I can connect to them. Allow me to elaborate. Earlier on this year, I did a vocal performance of Lady Macbeth for a radio play. Now, Lady Macbeth is a character I've always loved, and I had always wanted to play her. And lo and behold, when I turned 31 years old, I did it. Life makes sense. But going back to what I was saying, the reason why Lady Macbeth appeals to me, in particular, is that she is very ambitious. Okay? Now, there's a lot of very valid arguments to say that Macbeth, the play in general, is perhaps one of Shakespeare's most misogynistic. Now, there is some agreement on my part there, in that case, but all the same, when I think of Lady Macbeth, I think of somebody who's very powerful and who knows what she wants. Now, in regards to the scheme that she and Macbeth cooked up, here's the thing. She only originally wanted to kill Duncan out of the desire to become, a queen. You see, she never had anything personal against Duncan. In fact, in the play, she speaks very favourably of him. She compares him to her father in a positive fashion. So, this regicide that she was a part of was completely clinical and, pragmatic. But as time went on, she paid for it with her own sanity, and she ended up presumably dying a very horrible death. And it's a lot to say that villains aren't supposed to be people that you base your own livelihood on. But here's the thing. While it's not okay to go out killing people just because you don't like the look of their face, there is something to be said about having the courage of a villain. Because most of the villains I like are incredibly audacious one way or another. And I can admire that because, here's the thing, I'm not like a shy little wallflower, but at the same time, I'm not the most bright, bombastic social butterfly. So to see a character, go out of their way and make a statement and do something they believe in, that is admirable to me. But again, to go out and kill people just because you don't like the look of them, in reality, isn't cool. But with villains in fiction, you can live vicariously through them. You may not like every single aspect of their character, but that's the beauty of people who don't exist. You can pick and choose what elements are attractive to you. and, you know, help them foster your own opinions or your own state of mind. So going back to Lady Macbeth, to play her and to get in touch with that darkness inside of me, it was a very liberating experience, because once again, she's a villain. She doesn't feel the moral coil that so many of us feel, that so many of us keep back from ourselves, because we're just so afraid of what will happen if we let go of that. Sigmund Freud, in his psychoanalytic theory, came up with the ego, the superego, and the id. Now, the id is undoubtedly the villain, is like the villain of the piece. And that all just goes back to the fact that villains are people, some way or another, we want to be. Deep down, even if it's just completely fantasy-based, it's something that appeals to us. So going back to the overall attraction of the villains to the villains I like, it all comes down to, you know, my own sort of feelings of inadequacy and, you know, wanting to live my life through them as a potential avatar. And I know how troubled that I might sound, but here's the thing. When it comes to villains and that sort of thing, and on the fictional standpoint, there's nothing wrong with saying that you love them, because they're not real people. And you know, the stuff they do isn't right. So for you to enjoy them all the same, that doesn't make you psychologically troubled. I think that makes you psychologically freer. It makes you perhaps a little more accepting of the life you live, and it helps you gain a better understanding of who you are, and perhaps of how the world works. So yes, to me, villainy is incredibly important. And villains in film and books and comics and all graphic novels, if you call them that, we need them. We need villains to help us, you know, sort out who we are, what we like, and what we can do. Villains test the boundaries. Villains push the envelope. And it all comes back down to wanting to do that sort of thing ourselves and not feel guilty about it. Villains are the id. Villains is the reptile part of the brain that works in the interest of itself, of nobody else. And we as human beings are like that. Every single sort of cruel and wicked act that humans have committed have come from the id. When we don't care about what another group of people think or how they act. The id is very sort of self-centric, very egocentric, I should say. And despite how ugly that is something that we can't deny in ourselves. And it's best that we have these villains in our books and on our screens, that we can recognize how bad it is, and therefore temper the way we feel and the way we act. Now, I'm not saying good guys are boring by comparison, but, you know what? Give me a really fascinating and multi-layered villain, because chances are I can see myself a lot more in them. Another sort of a villainous character that I love, and a lot of you already know this, is Colonel Tabington from The Patriot. He is the definition of the id. Okay, he has taken this war, the American Revolution, as his own means of gaining satisfaction. He's a very combative and cruel and malignant creature, but here's the thing, you can understand why he is the way he is. War brings out the most ugliest aspects of people, and there's no condoning that. But at the same time, we can understand why people do what they do in circumstances like that. Another example of villainy that I like is Cersei Lannister from the Game of Thrones series. Now, the reason why I say this series is that Cersei Lannister in the books isn't necessarily a multi-layered character on the page, but what Lena Headey has done with Cersei in the television series is incredible. Cersei does a whole lot of shitty things, and she's a very terrible mother and just not a good person. But here's the thing, Cersei all of her life has been kicked around and been treated as cattle. And unfortunately, all those terrible experiences have affected her in a negative manner. Here's an example. Cersei was sold off to Robert Baratheon to be a bride. Now, to begin with, she was happy about that. You know, she was really sort of eager and curious as to what it'd be like to live as a queen, because back then, Robert Baratheon was really good looking. He was a very charming and very sort of fierce and protective warrior. But as time went on and as their relationship grew more and more sour, he was so cruel to her. And she reacted to his treatment of her in kind. She became, you know, uglier and uglier underneath. And eventually the marriage just imploded. It was a really sad state of affairs. On top of that, apparently Robert would, you know, drunkenly rape her every night. Now, that's something nobody deserves. You know, rape sucks. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, with what Cersei Lannister is in Game of Thrones is that despite the fact that she is one of the villains, you can see why she is the way she is, and that's thanks in no small part to Heady's performance. So yeah, if you ask me, I think Lena Headey would make an excellent Lady Macbeth. But yes, I could go on for ages and ages about what villains I like, because there are multitudes of them. But it all comes back down to the reason why I love the villains so much is that they are essential to our own morality. They are essential to our culture and to our psychological affairs. Because when you look at it this way, if you think you're having a really bad day, think about, you know, just think about the villains who are sort of, you know, making everybody's lives even more miserable. Yeah, I'm sorry for rambling on a tangent, and I do apologise if some of what I said doesn't make sense. But here's the thing. Villains are essential to who we are as a species. We need our villains to show us just how worse life could be if we were to give in to those baser instincts. So yes, that was my lecture. And if you have any comments or inquiries or donations, please leave them in the message box below, and I shall see you later for another video. So hopefully I haven't bored your tits off by posting this one. But yes, villains rock, and you should recognise. See you later.